Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Devin Townsend, PowerNerd, out October 25th on Inside Out Music. The album has 11 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is his 12th solo studio record. He's a Canadian singer, songwriter, musician, all-around genius. As far as the design is concerned, I feel like this album was created with two ideas in mind. One is to give each song its own individual space to blossom so you can completely digest the nature and individuality of each and every single song. The second aspect of it is blending those differences in a way, or bringing the differences in the songs and presenting them in such a way that the connection between the tracks is not as different as what it's offered within them. So this is an album that moves very seamless from track to track, and by moving seamless from track to track, it allows all of these differences to coexist under one single roof, which gives great quality and playability to the overall record. As far as the sound is concerned, I feel like this album immediately presents itself in a much heavier way. It's an album that overall, it has more power, it has more heaviness, it depends a lot more heavily on more traditional heavy metal elements, if you will, both musically and vocally, but perhaps more musically than vocally. And that is true throughout all 11 songs, some more than others, but you can find the heaviness of the record really spread out throughout the album and allowing itself to become one of the common denominators and one of the common factors that this album puts forward. Having said that, you're still going to find a lot of elements from light work. The previous record almost lingers into this album, and it's impossible to hear this record without connecting it with its predecessor. Almost like taking the idea of the predecessor and then turning it all the way to 11. This album has a little bit of that ability, so it's a nice way of moving forward, offering a different perspective, offering different textures, different sounds, a much heavier impact, a lot more intensity, a lot more overall aggression, but not necessarily disconnecting from the past. This album is the perfect segue from where you were to where perhaps you wanted to go. It's an album that sounds very rich. It has really big sounding songs, and I'm not talking about just big sounding in terms of how heavy they are, because I honestly feel like PowerNerd, the opening track, is the heaviest song on the album. But outside of that track, you're still going to find a lot of heavier moments within this record from song to song. But it's an album that has, beyond that, a lot of great sound qualities. It's very wide, it's very rich, it's not afraid of using video game samples from the 80s. It's not afraid of using acoustic elements to bring that more lighthearted, that more warmth atmosphere into the sound, still with very deep atmospheric songs where the synths play an important role in creating that same atmosphere, but never really pushing the guitars and drums into a secondary role, which is what we saw a lot of in light work. So it's creating music in a very similar way, but with different elements emphasized and with different elements leading the charges. In this case, more of your traditional drums, guitars, and bass really in the forefront of what the overall sound is. And the guitars play an important role in this record, as they always do on a Devin Townsend album. They are pretty much the soul of the record. They are the energy, they're the heartbeat, and this album is no different. I enjoy tremendously the overall sound coming out of the guitars, either be from the acoustic side or the little bit of the heavier side of the record. It's such an interesting album to listen to, because the sounds that he creates, the experience that he offers, the atmospheres, the textures that he puts forward guitar-wise are always so mesmerizing, and it's able to make you feel so many different ways from on a song-by-song basis, creating almost vivid pictures with its own notes, and this album has a lot of that. The heavier side of the album didn't take anything away from the more progressive, from the more technical, from the more atmospheric side of the album. And perhaps where you see the biggest impact is that the drum sound on this record is very robust. I was not expecting that. I was expecting the heaviness to rely more so on the vocals and more so on the guitars. It is there on the guitar side, not so much on the vocal side, but I was surprised that the drums kind of picked up where the vocals dropped off. So the drum sound on this record does have oomph, obviously in those heavier portions, and then it plays a little bit more of a soulful approach, and the songs that are a little bit lighter, that have a little bit of a different energy. And like I said, vocally, I was expecting the album to have harsh vocals, or to depend a lot more on a more heavy vocal approach, and that's not the case. The vocals have a lot of different textures throughout the record. As the songs go, so does the vocal performance. Sometimes a little bit more in the forefront, sometimes a little bit more behind, sometimes with a more distant perspective, almost electronic elements in it. Sometimes a little bit of a warmer delivery, a little bit of a deeper delivery, a few harsh vocals here and there, a few grunts here and there. So it's a very alive album vocally. It's not an album that stays on course or stays on path from the first to the last song. It really moves all over the place, as the sound does. So it stays in sync with the sound, but not necessarily in sync in terms of the balance that it offers throughout. A very interesting record, a record that I enjoyed tremendously, because for as much as I enjoyed light work, this album still gave me a lot of the same emotions out of that record, but in a heavier way, but also in a more light-hearted way. And specifically when it comes to the lyrical content, this album is very light-hearted on that, from that side, or at least it gives you that perception of being very light-hearted. Songs like Ruby Quaker, I mean, that track is hilarious. What a way of closing off an album, both from a song's perspective, but also from the lyrics that it offers. So this is a fun record to listen to. It's a light-hearted record to listen to that definitely focuses itself more on the metal elements that perhaps had been a little bit forgotten. Not perhaps, it were a little bit forgotten with light work. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Knuckledragger. This is a fun track. I mean, the title of the track says it all. It's a fun song. It has some of those arcade 80s samples in it, and that adds to the meathead vibe that the song has. But it also adds to the overall fun and energy that the track puts forward. It's a track that mixes introverted moments with extroverted moments, and that allows the song to have a lot of mobility. It's a song that vocally is very rich. There's a lot of layers, there's a lot of textures to the vocals. It has a very electronic drive behind it, not just because of the samples, but the sound itself. It has that, but it finds a way of merging all of these different moving pieces to create a very energetic and fun track. Then you have Gratitude, one of the softer songs on the record, and I think this is a song that could have totally existed in light work. It has a lot of the same elements, it has a lot of the same characteristics. It's a song that, like I said, is very soft, perhaps the softest, both musically and vocally. And that allows the track to have this stripped down nature to it, but a stripped down nature that creates a very warmth approach in terms of how the vocals come across and even the lightness of the sound. It's a track that grows in the chorus. The chorus is not heavier, it just has more elements. It just has more thickness. But it's a great chorus because it's super hooky, very catchy from a vocal standpoint and from a musical standpoint. So it's a beautiful, melodic, ballad style, stripped down track. And then we come to my favorite song on the entire record, Glacier. Massive sounding song. I mean, this is almost like a Nightwish style track, and I don't mean that from a symphonic standpoint, because this is not a symphonic song, but I mean in terms of the atmosphere that the song has, the way the music, the way the drums, guitars, bass, the way all of these elements work with the synths to create such a larger than life sounding song. It's just a big song. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say, like I said, as a symphonic song, but it reminded me of Nightwish in terms of how they create these larger than life, almost cinematic soundtracks style songs. And this one has all of those characteristics. It has all of those elements in it. It's a song that has perhaps a thicker nucleus, a heavier, thicker nucleus, but it has so much room around that nucleus that allows it to expand and to be a little bit lighter and thinner on the edges. The use of the acoustic guitar on this track is really beautiful. It adds a sense of simplicity to the way the track is put forward, the way the song is created, creating pockets of air as well, and allows the overall heavier, bigger sound to exist in a much balanced way. Great track all around, my favorite song on the record. This is it, Devin Townsend with PowerNerd, out October 25th on Inside Out Music. Let me know your thoughts on Devin Townsend, on the record, on the songs, on your expectations. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.